You are about to listen to a free portion of the Young Turks. To podcast the complete show, sign up for membership at tytnetwork.com/membership.
All right, back on the Young Turks. How's this for fun? We got Jamie Kennedy coming on in the second hour.
No big deal.
No big deal. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. He was
an experience.
He was only in As Good as It Gets, Three Kings, Boiler Room, Malibu's Most Wanted, Enemy of the State. Oh, I was also an Enemy of the State. That'll be an interesting.
This month has been all Enemy of the State actors.
Right. Oh yeah.
And Contact, I guess.
Yeah, Contact too. Okay. I was also an Enemy of the State. You can't really see me, but I did participate. Okay. Anyway, and by the way, I am back from my trip to Taiwan. Some of you guys saw some of the clips I did on my Facebook page. That's Cenk Uygur Official. And I have 1,000 post games for you guys. 1,000 years of rain. That's for next week. Okay, we've got something we're shooting in the studio right after the show, so I can't do it today. But next week, I'm going to tell you about my take on Taiwanese culture.
Oh, the whole culture.
Yeah, it's possible that that's going to be slightly controversial. Okay. And fame.
It's backed by a deep study, too. Right?
Oh, yes. My take on art. You're going to enjoy that.
I've heard it before, actually.
A lot of people have heard your take on art.
No, I've gotten, well.
I share his take on art, by the way.
Yes, but I went to the National Palace Museum in Taiwan. I'll explain that. And then fame or lack thereof in Taiwan is a fun little thing. And then I was on CNN this morning. That's going up on YouTube. We're going to run it for you guys right after the live show, I believe. And then and also we'll do a post game on it next week because I want to tell you the behind the scenes of when I was on CNN. So all of that, if you join up at tytnetwork.com/join. Come join us. All right, what's next, John?
Okay, let's jump ahead. Hillary Clinton was asked a question by a Greenpeace activist at a rally this week, and she was not happy about it.
Come on, this is a family show.
I do not. I have money from people who work for fossil fuel companies. I am so sick. I am so sick of the Sanders campaign lying about me. I'm sick of it. I agree with you with Sanders on the carbon.
So admittedly, it's a little bit difficult to hear because of the loud music blaring, but the Greenpeace activist asked if she would stop accepting money from fossil fuel companies, and she responded that she takes money from people who work for them. Now, her campaign released a statement insisting it has not taken a dollar from oil and gas industry PACs or corporations, which is technically true. She has not taken any money directly from oil companies, since you can't do that. That is true. We're going to get to some of the numbers in just a little bit. Now, she immediately pivoted, of course, to assuming that woman, despite the fact that I think she identified herself as a Greenpeace activist, has to simply be a plant of the Sanders campaign or is simply echoing comments and talking points from the Sanders campaign. But the Greenpeace Democracy campaign director has put out this statement. Secretary Clinton cannot ignore the voices of activists asking her to reject fossil fuel money or explain away the more than $1 million she takes from fossil fuel lobbyists. Secretary Clinton is conflating Greenpeace with the Sanders campaign, but we are an independent organization, and our research team has assessed the contributions to all presidential candidates. In terms of those monies, before our commentary, why don't we just go through the numbers? According to the Centers for Responsive Politics, her campaign has received more than $300,000 from oil and gas industry employees this cycle, many of whom are lobbyists or affiliated with those companies. For comparison, Bernie Sanders has received a little more than $50,000 from the industry by that same metric, while John Kasich has received $115,000 and Ted Cruz more than $1 million. Ted Cruz is doing quite well for himself amongst those.
Well, when you're the senator from Texas,
that is true.
It helps. And we should also, I think it's worth pointing out that the $307,000, which is what the Clinton campaign has gotten from workers, they say workers in the oil and gas industry, it represents 0.2% of all the money that she has taken in from donations. It's a large number to hear, 307,000, generally speaking. And unfortunately, in this day and age, it's not a huge part of what she has taken in. And one thing that I think is the most pointed criticism to what Hillary Clinton said there is the fact that the real reference here is that there was a pledge that Sanders signed in January that he would not take money from the oil and gas and fossil fuel industry. She has not signed that. Now, again, the numbers are not that wild. And I think that the real question then becomes, how much money has the Clinton Foundation taken from these people? How much of her super PACs, which she's not responsible for, and I don't think, they're all, beyond reproach because of the system they're in. But I think that, I think her point on this, her frustration over this, is that she really, in terms of the amounts of money that have been taken in, none of the Democrats have taken very much money in. She much more than Sanders, but
I mean, look, if you say $250,000, it sounds like a lot, but I mean, look, $300,000, that's like 90 minutes of a Hillary Clinton speech. It's really not that much money.
That's true. But 0.2% of all the money she's taken in.
No, but okay, look, wait, let's get the full picture here. I don't know why we're burying the lead here. First of all, she's taking money in different layers. Yes, the $307,000 is from employees of oil and gas companies. There's a second layer, which is some of those oil company lobbyists bundling money for her. That's $1.2 million. Okay, and then there's a third layer, which is $4.5 million if you include the super PACs. Now, you say she doesn't have control over them, but that's a joke, right?
Well, I'm saying that's not what this, that's not what the pledge addressed. That's not what this was about, because candidates. Listen, you can be as skeptical as you want about these super PACs, and I am just as skeptical, and I am too. But the point is, I mean, the laws are the laws, and the rules about those are as such that she cannot control or solicit directly and talk about that money in this framework. And that pledge doesn't. The pledge that Sanders signed has nothing to do with the super PACs. The pledge they want her to sign has nothing to do with super PACs. It's just her campaign.
Right. Now, the Bernie Sanders campaign doesn't have any super PACs. So they didn't get $4.5 million. Hillary Clinton does have a super PAC. Oh, golly gee, it happened to take a lot of money from the oil companies. Is she not aware that she's gotten $4.5 million, including her super PACs? Of course she's aware, right? So, but that gets to the actual essential question here, which Michael was getting at. To them, they think they're genuinely frustrated because they think, what's the big deal? So by the way, there's a fourth layer, again, Michael mentioned it, which is the Clinton Foundation. ExxonMobil and others have given a lot of money to the Clinton Foundation as well.
I think that's a higher level. But
yes,
yes, in the hierarchy.
So and it involves more money, et cetera, right? But the reason they're frustrated is they're like, what? Yeah, people give to the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, they give to my super PACs. Yes, I've hired many lobbyists who used to work for TransCanada, who used to work for Exxon, who used to work for all these places. But what am I supposed to do? Not hire people who used to be lobbyists? Then who the hell would I hire? Well, Sanders would say you would hire people who actually care, right? Yeah. That have worked in government but not gone through the revolving door and not been lobbyists, et cetera, right? But to her, she's expressing a frustration like, this is business as usual. I don't know what you want me to do about it. And what people are saying is, yeah, you're not getting it. We don't like business as usual. It's not a great excuse that Ted Cruz took more money than you did from the oil companies. You're still taking money. And what you don't realize is that you're being influenced because these people now are your consultants. They consult you. They tell you what they think is the right thing to do. And you view that as no big deal because, hey, Bob's been consulting me for a long, long time. But he's been consulting you to be pro-oil and gas companies for a long, long time.
But how do you then... and I'm asking you, a real question here. Reconcile the fact that all of her rhetoric on climate change, on going after Exxon specifically, all of that is so disconnected from the $307,000 or $4.5 million.
It's super easy to reconcile that because her rhetoric was totally pro those companies until a couple of months ago when she got scared by Bernie Sanders in elections.
I don't think you can always call her a climate change denier.
No,
I don't think,
but Michael, you're
she's always she has put that on at the forefront of both. Of both of her campaigns for president and her campaign for Senate.
No,
she has talked about climate change. Yes,
she
has
talked about it.
No, so let's be clear on that. So Michael makes good points, and fair is fair, right? So, of course, she's not a climate denier, but it's really damning with faint praise to say, okay, she's not a lunatic, right? And she has talked a lot about climate change. Wes and Michael are right about that. Now, but when it comes to taking action, she was for the TPP, which helps, a lot of these oil and gas companies overall. She was for the Keystone XL pipeline. She was for fracking. All three of those positions she changed during this campaign.
But it's still more pro-fracking. Far more pro-fracking.
I would say that's right. And I think that she was new. I mean, she was unannounced on the others. And when she started campaigning, then she took a position. With fracking, though, that's problematic.
She was not unannounced on TPP.
She was also part of an administration, which is a little bit different when something comes up.
Okay, but look at the conversation we're having. all the reasons that she's pro-oil and gas until really pressed in a Democratic primary, and then she kind of switches her position. If you don't think she'll switch it back, you're not paying any attention to politics. She will definitely switch her position on many of those issues right back to where her donors want it to be if she wins. Okay, by the way, that's what President Obama did in a lot of instances as well. But the fact that others do it and that business as usual is corruption doesn't excuse the corruption. There is one candidate who is not for that corruption. So if you're choosing between two candidates, one bathed in corruption and thinks, is flummoxed at the idea that you wouldn't be corrupt, and another candidate that isn't corrupt at all.
If you're going to say it's not a climate, she's not a climate. I don't want to get into defending any candidates here either. No. But if you're going to say she's not a climate denier, you can't say she's flummoxed over the idea that she cannot get away with corruption. I don't think that's a fair.
But she is. She's like, what do you mean? Of course, I take money from the employees of oil and gas companies. Of course.
She's saying that because she didn't sign the pledge. She's taken that 307 or whatever it is. But I also think that you parse this stuff down and you look at who the people that are giving this money to Hillary Clinton. It could be somebody who works for Exxon who likes Democratic politics and likes Hillary Clinton.
So, Michael, you're right about that. And for example, employees of those companies have given $50,000 to Bernie Sanders.
Correct.
Right? Okay, now it's nowhere near the $4.5 million overall.
But the employees wait a second. The employees, forget that other. So we're talking about the people that gave $307,000 here. Okay?
No, I'm talking about the $4.5 million.
No, you are, but that's not just. Those aren't workers sending $27 to Bernie Sanders and $100 to Hillary Clinton.
A good portion gave the maximum allowable by law and work as lobbyists.
And the people that work as lobbyists also. I mean, you can take this conversation in many directions. People who work as lobbyists, as Wes knows, that you could be an oil and gas lobbyist. You could also be a lobbyist for the lumber industry, and you could also be a lobbyist.
That's exactly
for
my point, which is that they're all my guys are lobbyists. What do you want me to do?
Well, I mean, so there's overlap everywhere. So you could call almost any lobbyist an oil and gas lobbyist. Not true, but I mean, it's not a real exaggeration. But the point I'm making, Cenk, is that some of this is about the people who give money in small donations and maximum donations personally who happen to work for companies. And they also happen to like Democrats.
Tiny percentage.
Right.
So when she says, well, these people who are giving to me, well, she literally said in one of these quotes here, they're going to find out that I'm working against their interests. Now, they didn't give you $4.5 million because they think that you're working against their interests. They know who you've been. You have a 40-year record. Nobody's going to be surprised. If Bernie Sanders is a 40-year record, he didn't get $4.5 million.
But the sophisticated donors are also giving you're going to see a lot of people who gave to Ted Cruz and Hillary Clinton. I'm sure that's the case. Which is what happens. And I'm not defending it. I mean, clearly, if you don't like this, then you should support and give money and do all you can to get Bernie Sanders elected. But I do think that there is a legitimate gripe on the part of Clinton, who has really tried to steer clear in terms of her rhetoric on the issue, and that makes it a little frustrating for her.
Okay, let me talk about it a little bit on the gripe. Okay, first, she immediately says, I'm tired of Bernie Sanders, which was not a mistake. That was, I'm getting in a confrontation, and Bernie Sanders, people are saying bad things about me. What people don't really get about the Democratic Party is it's incredibly disorganized. And there's not really that much money for most people. And most people who are going to shout at you do it because they believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that anyone said, hey, go out there and ask her how much money she's gotten from oil. They don't do that.
Yeah.
And on the global warming side, I mean, okay, listen, she doesn't deny it exists. But, when I look at Hillary Clinton, and I know her, and I know Bill, it's going to be a continuation of the Obama administration, which, personality-wise, I think Obama and his wife are great. He's been a great president. I think in terms of the challenges that we're all facing for our future, those of us who aren't 70 years old and going to kick it in 10 years, it's
so
fucking
I can
scary
drop out of this one.
that nobody's doing anything. I mean, that the view of that generation, the majority of them in their late 60s and early 70s is, okay, here's the science on climate change. We'll pass some measure that'll come into effect in 2030. It's always 2030, 2040, 2050. It's not like we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade.
Yeah.
It's never that. And Bernie Sanders approaches it like, hey, dude, this is a World War II level, which I think it's more. This is an existential thing for the United States and everybody out there who's under the age of 60. It's going to affect you. Not 20 years, in 10 years, it's going to affect you. And if we don't do something about it now and take drastic actions, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Scientific term, but.
Yeah.
So then Michael, in one of the things he says there, it winds up being the most right? So if you care about this as much as Wes does, and you want somebody who doesn't find it normal to take money from oil and gas lobbyists, then you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. If you don't, you're making a mistake. Or maybe you care more about other issues, or you don't want a revolution, you don't want to break up big banks, or you don't want higher taxes.
Or you believe that Hillary Clinton will actually do something, will care about it more than you believe she will when it comes to climate change. So
that's an untenable position.
That's not, it's not untenable because she is saying that, and if you are listening to her, but if she's saying that, and if you are listening to her, and you are somebody who believes that she would be a good president, then you can believe that part of her rhetoric. And the same,
So again, Michael's right about that in this way, right? So if you think, hey, we can't get the level of change that Wes is talking about, it's not doable. So let me just get the 5-10% change. And I think Hillary Clinton can give me 5 to 10% change. She's more pragmatic, and she's going to work with the Republicans. She's going to give them tax cuts and other things, and I'm going to get a reduction of X amount by 2030 or 2050. Then yeah, Hillary Clinton's your candidate.
Let me give you the analogy for this. Okay, Hillary Clinton's going to be president. She's like, our measure is going to be, everyone's going to have to switch to vegan food. Okay, but we're not going to change anything else, and you're all still going to die in civilizational collapse in 100 years. Or, I might as well just eat my fucking steaks and die in 20 years. I mean, don't give me half measures. This is about the survival of the planet. Go all the way. If 99% of the scientists in the world are saying, and some are saying that we're facing civilizational collapse within 15 to 16 years, which is about 20 to 30% of the papers that I'm reading, and people are like, oh, it's no big deal, don't worry about it. I mean, fuck, dude, think about New York City. What's going to happen if the sea level rises just 2 feet for New York City? What's going to happen to every bit of insurance in the United States is gone? Okay, well, who's going to build that wall? And the other thing
the Mexicans.
Good. Except, why should the people of America have to build a seawall around Manhattan that's populated by a bunch of billionaires and foreigners?
I agree.
Why should we have to pay for that?
And my mom and my brother, by the way. So let's just calm down,
but
everybody.
at the same time,
and your sister.
No, and economically we have to because of the value of the insurance and the value of the land. However, because there's
millions of Americans live there, and you do that.
There's bridges. They
can go places.
Really fast, can I just throw in one side thing? Hillary Clinton has obviously, in I think every one of these primary elections, she's done much worse than Bernie amongst young people. And she has been asked that multiple times. Sometimes she's tried to answer, sometimes she's evaded. I think that one way that she might not be connecting with young people is that this is just the most recent in a series of interactions. I know she meets with a lot of people at these events, but she seems viscerally frustrated with youth activism because she constantly gets approached by young activists who coincidentally in all the viral videos tend to be women. Generally, they tend to be minority women. And she reacts as if it's the biggest inconvenience in the world to be presented with young people who are passionate about something. This is a Greenpeace activist. She sees it as it has to be a plant of the Bernie Sanders campaign or somebody who is simply bought in because they have no thoughts of their own into the messaging of the Bernie Sanders campaign. No, Greenpeace has cared about fossil fuel campaign donations and the future of American energy policy for a long time. It didn't take Bernie Sanders and his campaign ads to convince them, and by virtue of that, this young activist, to care about that issue.
And when they see things like sign the damn pledge is what she should do. That would be easy.
The centrists who run the Democratic Party view Greenpeace as kind of half a degree off the fucking Soviet Union. She's never going to agree with Greenpeace.
Yeah, that's true.
It's never going to happen.
I would say in terms of if I was on her campaign, if I was advising her, I would tell her perhaps not to act as if when you are faced with these youth activists, like they're the biggest inconvenience on your path to the presidency.
I would also just tell her to sign the goddamn pledge.
I would do that too.
It couldn't be easier. Just sign the pledge.
Yeah, I would do that too.
You guys are all right. It almost sounds like every time she comes across a young voter who's challenging her, she's screaming, "Get off my lawn," right? And that's not a good image if you need those younger voters. Even if you assume you're going to win the primary, you're going to need a lot of those people to show up and vote in the general election. So try not being so dismissive.
Yeah, and I want to be clear because people will try to attack us, I think, cheaply. I'm not criticizing the volume of her voice, her tone. It's hard to tell from the video, but there's blaring music. That's why she's screaming, is because you literally have to scream to be heard. I'm not criticizing anything about that. I'm criticizing literally the words that she said. Because she could have used it as an opportunity to express even some fake politician understanding to the activist, and she declined that opportunity in this case.
Okay, guys, we're pretty much out of time. So let's skip the next story and just do one last one. Let's do Lyin Ted, okay? Kasich and Lyin Ted.
Okay, give me 1 second. I really wish we could talk about these nukes. We should bring back these nukes next week because that's a story I find very interesting.
And by the way, Sanders just raised $44 million in March.
Unbelievable amount of money.
Slightly more than in February.
Yeah.
And and I've got to tell you this one quick fact. He needs 57% of the vote going forward to win without the superdelegates. Okay.
Yeah.
The same exact amount that Donald Trump needs. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Now Trump is leading in the Republican race, and Bernie
it's
Sanders is
easier
trailing
on the Republican side,
right?
Because
And
of winner take all.
That's right. So full context, but.
Yeah.
It's like, Bernie Sanders is done and Donald Trump's definitely going to win. They both need 57% of the delegates going forward. Yeah. So that's an interesting piece of content.
Doable. 18 games back in September, but doable.
All right. I hear you, brother. Okay, let's do the line.
It's not all about hockey, okay? This is politics.
Good point, John.
A pro-John Kasich PAC has released an ad attacking Ted Cruz that neither Ted Cruz nor, in this case, John Kasich approve of. Let's watch.
Many just call him Lyin Ted. Lied about Ben Carson to steal a win in Iowa. Lies about being the best for the GOP when polls show he can't even beat Hillary Clinton. His TV ad about John Kasich? Lie. Stations had to pull it off the air. If Ted Cruz's mouth is moving, he's lying.
New Day Independent Media Committee, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Makes me incredibly
This in the
uncomfortable.
same show that Wes said, it's not like I have a dick growing out of my forehead.
No, true. You expect it to go right into his mouth at some point.
Yeah.
Well, let's break down all the ways that that's disturbing. So first, it looks phallic / hot doggian.
Yes.
/ Noosian.
Pork sausage.
I mean, it looks like a...
That's what I was going to.
It almost looks like H.R. Geiger early stuff of.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like the weird phallus growing out of his nose is disturbing enough, but actually,
The autoerotic asphyxiation element.
Yeah, that's funny, right? The dick growing out of his nose, funny, right? But the noose, I actually don't like.
No.
Like, I think that's disturbing. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Don't do that in politics, even to a guy you despise like Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Don't put a noose around his neck. That's terrible, right? So John Kasich winds up objecting to the fact they're
I've got
calling
some
him
quotes for him.
Lyin Ted Cruz. Now, I'm objecting to the noose around his neck, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, 1,000 times worse. Just now, a really small point to go along with that. He's lying whenever his mouth is moving.
His mouth is not moving.
Not
The whole
moving,
ad.
I
The
know.
whole ad. That was the thing that bothered me the most. Whenever he
actually
moves his
notice
mouth.
Yeah, so I do want to give John Kasich, I guess, a little bit of credit by coming out against this, although, again, it is the Lyin Ted part. I guess he doesn't want to be seen to be using the particular attacks and slurs that Donald Trump uses, since they seem so
And it's a
juvenile,
super PAC ad,
but
not
a super
a
PAC ad,
Kasich
not
ad,
his
just
actual
so-
ad. So he has come out and said this. I've talked to all the folks in my regular campaign and told them I'm very unhappy with the use of that word, Lyin Ted. I don't run that organization, but I've expressed my displeasure, and they're going to, we can't communicate with them directly, but I don't like that word, and I've told them that, and I said it last night on television, and I would hope that they will not use that word and they'll take it down. But I love that the small site that we get into the candidates and their super PACs.
He almost slipped.
I've told them to that. I can't actually communicate with them, but I don't want them to play it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. He's pretty much saying it here. He's saying, I've told him not to run it.
Yeah.
And
What does coordination mean if it doesn't mean that?
Yes. So in this case, we're giving him credit because it's a particularly obnoxious ad, and he's telling his super PAC don't do it. But let's understand, this is coordination.
Yeah.
The idea that these super PACs I want to dispel the notion that these super PACs are independent of the campaigns, because they most certainly are not.
Funny, the big case study was going to be Mike Murphy's PAC with Right to Rise with the Bush campaign, and they didn't even get to Florida. So I mean, we didn't get to see, because that's where all of the media money that was going to track that association, because they were so associated for so long, Murphy and Bush, that they were putting all their resources into tracking that, but it didn't get to the point where they could do it anymore because
Poor Jeb.
Poor Jeb.
Give him a break.
So if Kasich can say, hey, don't do that, and for all the other ads he doesn't say it, that kind of means I'm cool with all your other ads, keep going, right?
Yeah.
So this is how coordination works. When you go outside a little bit, I didn't like a word. I mean, look at how deep the coordination is. He's telling you specifically which word he didn't like, right? So now you're going to run the ad omitting that word. Yeah, of course the super PACs are connected to the campaigns. Of course they are. This is a goddamn joke, right? So that part of the story is in some ways more problematic than the news around Ted. But
the other thing, though, Jank, is that people like John Weaver and Chris Schrimpf and people that were part of the Cruz campaign have been using Lyin Ted a lot. And so I guess, he was also giving a directive to his campaign, and we're not going to use Lyin Ted anymore. We don't like to use
that's
that.
the good part. He can give any directive he wants to his campaign. And Lyin Ted to me is like, oh, is that, impolite? Who cares? And then
juvenile.
Kasich says, Cruz is smearing me, and he says all these other things, but he doesn't like that word. I don't really care about that. I care, by the way, I agree with you guys. I care more that it's juvenile. Like, Lyin Ted is not clever. It's not a thing. No. Stop saying Lyin Ted as if it's like a rhyme or clever in any way. It's
you
not
can say it about anybody. Lyin Ted.
What was funny was that Donald Trump had a new grandson recently whose name was Theodore whatever last name. And somebody on Twitter, I don't know, I think it might have been Alex Seitzwald, I'm not sure, but said, crying Ted? That was funny.
See, that's clever.
That's clever. That's good.
That's clever.
But despite all that, you know what, though? It worked. Because now when people think Ted, they think Lyin Ted.
Or they think about a penis wrapped around his throat. One of the two things. I don't know.
Okay, Michael Schur, Epic Politics Man, thank you. Wes, John, thank you guys. We got a whole new power panel coming up, including Jamie Kennedy. We've got really interesting stories for you guys, including can April Fool's Day be banned? The answer is yes. We'll explain. And
but we're announcing that on April Fool's Day, so can you really trust us?
Okay.
We have a whole year to do it.
And also, should women's soccer players be paid as much as men's soccer players? And I believe there's compelling arguments both directions, but a very compelling one saying they should be paid more, but they are not. I'll tell you how much
soccer players be paid, though? That's the question.
At all.
The most compelling question. Okay, all right, we'll be right back, guys. All right, welcome to the Young News Friday second hour. Drop it. Jamie Kennedy, Francesca Fiorentini. That was not bad, right?
That was great.
Normally I'm terrible with names. But James, see, I just did it. I just said James.
It's okay.
Thank you, Mom. He actually asked me off camera, Jaime or Jamie or.
But we literally had a Jaime just last week, right? Yes. Which the whole studio went nuts over. Anyway.
How did you not go nuts over Jaime?
Okay, so Jaime Camille, every Latino guy in here was like, holy shit, he's in the studio, right? He's apparently like the most famous guy in Latin America. And every woman was like, oh my God, he's in the studio. Irina, admit that you literally skipped that day.
I don't think I had the same welcome.
Jamie. Look. Ja'Cory's going nuts.
Thank you, Ja'Cory. Appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you, Sound Man. Big Sound Man. Wired.
All right. Jamie is in Heartbeat. He is Dr. Callahan. That's Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on ABC.
NBC. Thank you. They wrote it. Damn, this is some good stuff. Edit that part. I love it.
Jesus Christ. Okay, NBC. NBC, as Howard Stern used to say.
Eventually.
Okay, that got us to say NBC 3 more times.
Yes.
So, at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays, you might remember from As Good as It Gets, Three Kings, Boiler Room. I watched every one of these movies. Malibu's Most Wanted and Enemy of the State. In fact, I was in Enemy of the State. Not a big deal.
You were?
Yes, cut out on the editing room.
What part?
I was in a hotel.
In Baltimore?
Yes.
That's crazy. I can't tell you how many people have said, yo, man, I was in a movie with you. And you were at the coffee cart, but you were like rude to me.
You were not rude to me.
Was I rude to you?
No, I was pretty much invisible, except Gene Hackman sat next to me and ate peanuts with me.
He's intense, right?
Yeah.
Big hands. He's a big.
Small peanuts, big hand. That's weird.
You said peanuts.
I said peanuts.
I hope you said peanuts because he's.
I have a whole thing about therapists. There was literally a case where a kid kept saying, my dad gives me his penis. He gives me his penis. He was Asian. He was saying peanuts. And like there was a whole giant case about it. I'm not kidding. It's real.
Those accents.
Okay. Anyway.
Weird.
I love it. We're co-workers. Good to see you again.
Second time being co-workers.
You're doing great. You're doing good. I told you were going to do good. I told you you were going to do good.
Yeah, Jaime, you're hanging in.
Appreciate that.
Okay, now Francesca is with AJ Plus. And get a load of this. She worked as an editor with War Resisters League and Left Turn Magazine. Which I don't know if there's two publications that sound more liberal than those two.
Yeah, no, they're left. They're very left, not just liberal.
I mean, the magazine's called Left Turn Magazine.
Oh, yeah. It was. It was awesome, actually.
All right, so
everyone should make their own media. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm expecting you to outlive me today, okay?
I'll totally outlive you.
Okay, that sounds good. And you're going to have an opportunity when I'm chauvinist pig on the soccer story.
Uh-oh.
We got some
Drums.
facts. Yeah.
Drums and peanuts. Okay, by all means, Anna, let's get started.
All right, let's do it. Quick update on a story we did last week. Last week, NYPD officials arrested a postal worker after the postal worker had yelled at the cops as they were driving because they were about to hit his postal truck. Now, after that happened, they got out of their police cruiser and then they proceeded to arrest him. We have video of the incident. Take a quick look.
Chill out. Lawsuit. You on camera? You on camera? Lawsuit. A UPS driver. Not even
What warrant? Yo, don't play like that. There's some good stuff in that.
There really is.
That's some good stuff. Is that New York?
Yeah.
That's some good stuff in that.
So the police lieutenant that was overseeing these police officials has now had his badge taken away and also his gun taken away after an investigation found that postal worker did nothing wrong. He wasn't resisting arrest. If anything, if he was resisting in any way, shape, or form, it's because he literally did nothing wrong. The only thing he did was yell at the cops and tell them that they were about to hit his truck. So he was trying to avoid an accident. Cops didn't like that, and they arrested him. Now, Lieutenant Luis Machado was placed on modified duty in connection with the embarrassingly volatile clash between cops and postal employee Glenn Grays in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. The 4 plainclothes cops got out of the car, slapped him with handcuffs, frisked him, and carted him off to the 71st Precinct State House, where he was charged with resisting arrest. Now, the amazing thing is, even after the police lieutenant was found in the wrong in this particular case, you have Patrick Lynch, who is with the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, saying, no one ever has the right to resist arrest. Compliance is not optional.
No, that's not the amazing part. The amazing part was that chant. Lawsuit.
Yeah, I kept hearing lawsuit.
If only you just chant lawsuit and then a lawyer would just descend from the heavens and
I think one will soon.
Yeah, sure. I think the craziest thing. I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, that's because I interrupted you with lawsuit. And my wild cough.
But I mean, the resisting arrest is just like basically, unless you're like, oh, please, officer, take me. Ooh, that feels good. No, a little tighter. Then you're resisting arrest. If you're like, this is crap. Please, no, this is dumb. I want a lawsuit. Like that's suddenly considered resisting.
So he hit their car, or he did not hit their car.
No one hit anyone's
car.
No
one hit any car.
No, the cops.
Nothing happened really.
The cops.
Nothing happened really. Okay, so then he'll, if that's going to be good for him because he's going to get lawsuit. He will make some money.
So first of all, his fiance is training to be a cop. He's got nothing against the cops except for the fact that they do this every once in a while.
Right.
And the cops are driving. He's not driving at all, so it couldn't possibly be his fault. When the cops almost clip his postal van truck, right? He's like, "Hey guys, can you watch it?" They're like, "That's it. Let's go arrest the guy," right? And so the reason they start saying "stop resisting," when you can see on tape he's not at all resisting, right? Is because so that they could later have Patrick Lynch come out and say, no one ever has a right to resist arrest, compliance is not optional, and that's their out. That's their out for everything, right? But we have eyes. We saw the guy, he puts his arms behind his back, keeps saying, I'm not resisting,
That's
right?
what I'm saying, yeah.
And so, look, some of the video is funny, but overall the issue is, of course, incredibly serious, and this happens all the time. Overall, with cops abusing their authority, it happens to minorities disproportionately. And so people are tired of it. And the good news here, as Anna pointed out, is NYPD in forever, like they've been doing stop and frisk for all this time, but for the first time in a long time is saying, no, this is not right. You can't just go arrest a guy because he yelled at you, especially when you almost hit his car. Right?
Yeah.
And he's a government worker. He's not doing anything wrong. It's
listen,
an
if
abuse
he
of
weren't
authority.
black, this wouldn't have happened. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. But again, just our relationships with the police are so, if you do not shut up and you can't explain anything that you're doing, I mean, I know this is a different case, but when are we going to actually sort of, calm the F down a little bit? And when are cops going to actually get some sensitivity training when it comes to, like, I'm just a human and I'm going to tell you what I was doing. I'm a postal worker.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I don't understand what the guy was supposed to do. First of all, I don't know if this would have happened if it was a black guy or a white guy. I mean, the reality is if you utter a single word to cops that they don't like, they're going to come after you. And that's exactly what happened in this case. They're about to hit his car. He told them, hey, I don't know exactly what he said word for word, but he yelled at them so they don't clip his car. That's the most understandable thing in the world. If these police officials are so damn sensitive that they can't handle someone yelling at them to avoid an accident, they shouldn't be cops.
That's also the thing is, like, you got the gun. Remember that? Yeah. This guy's got, like, an Amazon package. Like, you have a gun, you probably have a taser. Like, maybe we can talk this one down a little bit. So
I have to say, though, as a counterpoint, being a cop is a very hard job. Do we all agree with that?
Sure.
And there's definitely profiling going against races. We agree with that? But being a cop is a tough job. Do you agree with that?
It's so tough that you can't handle someone telling you, hey,
you almost hit my car.
Yeah, you almost hit my car.
Yeah, so that one was wrong. They were totally wrong.
Yeah, but they're wrong in a lot of stories that we do. Look, I'm not going to say that there are no good cops out there. I think there are good cops out there. I have one in my family, right? But at the same time, like, the fact that they can't handle people criticizing crooked police officials, the fact that they can't handle anyone questioning their authority when they're doing something wrong, shows you just incredibly how insecure and weak they are. Grow some balls. Someone's trying to avoid an accident. It's not that big of a deal. A black person isn't a threat to you just because they raise their voice at you to avoid an accident.
So, by the way, I should correct myself. Grace's fiance is not training to be a cop. She is a cop. She's a city cop. And so I'm sure that Grace thinks that there are good cops out there, right? He's married to one.
Right. Yeah.
So, and when Francesca talks about sensitivity training, we're not talking about being sensitive to the criminals, right? We're talking about being sensitive to the community, because you're supposed to be serving the community. And so that means everybody in the community, black, white, Latino, etc. And don't just assume everybody's a bad guy. Yes, Jamie, of course, they deal with a lot of bad guys, and that ain't easy, right?
Yeah.
But you also happen to deal with a lot of people in the community who are innocent. That's why you need the training to be able to tell the difference, because that's an important difference if you're here to protect us.
I have a quick anecdote. I was doing a gig in Indiana. I got pulled over 2 a.m. It was my opener. You'll get this story. And I put eye cream on. This is a real story, because I'm driving all night and I don't want to look tired. Cop pulls us over and goes, hey, man, you want meth? You want meth? Pulled us over, had a whole thing, recognized me, thank God, and said, we have a lot of meth in this thing. I'm sorry to pull you over, but it was the thing. I never said one thing. I could tell you a lot. I get pulled over often. I never fight with cops. Maybe I should. I don't do it because cops are cops.
You weren't like, this is L'Oreal. You don't
I wanted
understand.
to. I did. But what I'm saying
men's
is,
line.
I'm saying
It's
this
amazing.
is clearly wrong, but I never talk back to a cop. Do you guys? I never say shit.
No,
to a
but
cop.
here my question is,
I never say
like,
shit to a
even
cop.
just explaining yourself, like, with total respect, officer.
Don't
like,
do it. Don't say it.
But this and honestly, like, and let's just be real, right? It's very different if you're a white guy
Definitely.
than if you're
100%.
than you're not.
100%.
And I think that even trying to be polite and explaining yourself while black will immediately
Totally
you're
agree with
incriminating
that.
yourself.
Yeah, so let me counter your anecdote with an anecdote that I had. Okay, I'm a young white woman. Okay,
Yes.
I am the most. I drive a BMW. Okay, so there's
judgments.
Nothing, no.
Judgments are coming.
So one day for lunch, and I have two colleagues in the vehicle with me. I'm driving, I'm trying to get to lunch, and we get stuck in this horrendous traffic. And I'm in an area where I know that it's wrong to make a U-turn, but I make the U-turn anyway. I got busted by the cop on a motorcycle immediately. I was in the wrong, and I knew I was in the wrong. Did I try to argue with the cop? I did not. In fact, when he pulled me over, I told him, I'm sorry, officer, I know what I did was wrong, I deserve the ticket, completely conceding to what I did wrong. And this cop would not stop yelling at me, screaming at the top of his lungs, okay? I continue apologizing. John was in the car with me. Continues yelling at me. You were probably on your phone. Where's your phone? Were you texting? And I was like, my phone's in my bag in the back seat. I haven't even touched my phone. I'm sorry, I did the U-turn. Give me the ticket. He had me step out of my vehicle, okay? And he gets real close to me.
Creepy
and
cop.
Yes,
Creepy
absolutely
cop.
creepy. And then
Creepy
he asks
cop.
me, what are you doing today?
Oh, no.
And where,
Pickup cop.
Well, where are you going, right? Which is, by the way, a standard question. Where are you going? I'm going to lunch with my colleagues. Where do you work? I work for a news organization down the street. You want to know what he did?
What?
Didn't write me a ticket. Let me go.
So two parts of that story are disturbing. One is, pulling you out of the car and asking you what you're up to, et cetera. And everybody in the car, I heard the story from the guys that were in the car, said what the cop was doing was definitely provocative, right? And if you were alone and it was at night, how much scarier would it have been, right? And you're asking for the ticket.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And the second problem is that he didn't give you the ticket. I mean, I'm glad you got out of it, right? But that's actually a power situation where we happen to be in the media and we skate out of it.
That's
right?
exactly right.
And I have a friend who's a celebrity in his own right. He gives away his DVDs and gets out of tickets, right?
It's a good angle. Good angle.
And Jamie, if it wasn't just black under your eyes but all over your face, you might not have gotten out of that ticket. Right?
Do meth users have like?
No, it was shiny.
Oh, is that what happens?
It was really so it looked like I was sweating. It was like, you're sweating. Pulled me out. But by the way, you're right. I can't complain about anything. I'm a white person. The biggest thing that happened to me, I don't know if you see this little scars, I slipped out of my jacuzzi. I mean, that's my life.
Right.
Oh, that's a joke. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I can't complain. I can't complain about anything because I have I'm not persecuted. So yes,
Yeah.
and you.
And I'm not persecuted either, but my point is...
Well, no, you can't because you're a woman. He was using, he was trying to sex you up.
Honestly, that's the sense that I got. He was definitely a creepy cop. I wish I had his badge number or some information on him so I could actually go after him for what he did. But the reality is, it doesn't matter if you are perfectly compliant with cops. If there's a dirty cop, he's a dirty cop.
Yes,
and he will abuse his power in any way he sees fit. So I hate that argument of don't ever argue with the cops. We have a First Amendment right to argue with the cops if we want to. There's no law banning us from doing it.
All I'm saying is I don't want to guess. In a perfect world, it's 1 and 1 is 2. Well, it's not. There are dirty cops. There's also great cops. There's also dirty judges. There's dirty teachers. Also, so what I'm saying is I don't want to exacerbate a situation, and you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You were like, yo, man, I broke the law. I'll pay you.
Yeah.
And he was like, let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys. You have all the right in the world, but I just urge caution.
Yeah.
Because God knows what could happen.
I'm not encouraging people to talk back or argue with them. I'm just saying that arguing with them doesn't give them the right to abuse their power.
Yes. Okay. All right, what's next?
All right.
That's a good one. That story went.
Yeah, that was a little fiery. Okay, all right. That's what we like on the Young Turks.
All right. Lawmakers in Mississippi have passed legislation that would basically dictate your sex life, not only if you're in the LGBT community, but if you have the audacity to have sex outside of marriage. Now, at the heart of this issue is basically giving religious individuals and private and public entities the ability to discriminate against you if they have a religious reason for doing so. Let me give you the details. The bill repeatedly states that the state government shall not take any discriminatory action against a person or religious organization for refusing to take part in objectionable marriages, adoptions, or certain other services. In addition to social services such as marriage and adoption, the bill protects any private business who refuses to provide services, accommodations, facilities, goods, or privileges for a purpose related to the solemnization, formation, celebration, or recognition of any marriage based upon or in a manner consistent with a sincerely held religious belief or moral conviction described in Section 2 of this Act. That's from the legislation itself, okay? So basically they're saying if someone wants to discriminate against you and they're stating that they're doing it for religious purposes, well, then they should have the ability to do it.
When you started the story and you were talking about how the Mississippi legislators were going to dictate what we do in the bedroom, I was like, oh, I didn't know they ran like that. That sounds like it could get kinky. Like, okay, now this is what you do next. Okay, all right. Okay. But it turns out they don't want to have any fun at all. So now people get to decide what is literally, quote, an objectionable marriage. Right? So you might find a gay marriage objectionable, but you might find many other marriages objectionable. You might find one where they had premarital sex, or they're two different races, or somebody's marrying a Muslim, and you say, hey, you know what, I find that objectionable. Well, if you're in Mississippi, they find a lot of things objectionable. And then Section 2 talks about sexual relations that are properly reserved to such a marriage, right?
Yep.
So now we're in everybody's sex life. So if you had any sex, well, if it happened before the marriage, if it happened in a previous marriage, by the way, that's also against the Bible. If it happened outside of the marriage, that's also against the Bible.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, we're knee deep in your sex life and not in a fun way.
It's amazing how much these bills are just like
I got that.
knee deep.
This
is just the right to discriminate, right? It's like it's like a pro-discrimination bill, which is essentially what you could call it. It's called Protecting Freedom of Conscience from Government Discrimination Act.
It's funny because they're flipping, it's not literally funny, but they're flipping the discrimination laws that we have now on its head, because they're essentially saying, oh, all these gay people are worried about us discriminating against them. Well, we're worried about being discriminated against as religious individuals, right? But no, you're not being discriminated against. You get to practice whatever lifestyle you want to practice, but you don't get the right to discriminate against others because you don't like their lifestyle, right? And so it's not like this legislation is being interpreted as something that could impact people who are having premarital sex. It explicitly states it in the legislation. So let me give you that portion of it. Graphic number 10. Section 2, the sincerely held religious beliefs or moral convictions protected by this act are the belief or conviction that A, marriage is or should be recognized as the union of one man and one woman. B, sexual relations are properly reserved to such a marriage. And C, male, man, or female, woman refer to an individual's immutable biological sex as objectively determined by anatomy and genetics at time of birth. So basically they're like, yeah, all you transgender people, you guys can fuck off too.
Yeah. Or you can't fuck off.
Well,
Basically,
not in the way that they don't like.
They're basically saying threesomes are out.
Yeah. It's the least of it. But,
Yeah.
but that is
I mean,
way
I love how he's concerned about the threesomes. He's like, oh shit,
You got literal
threesomes in
with it.
Mississippi.
It's just it's so anti-gay, it's anti-trans. I mean, Mississippi, come on, just
But
give up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's
Give
true.
up.
I had a comment on it. What's the state that doesn't allow sodomy? Is it this state too?
No. So first of all, there's been a lot of different.
And how would you even get busted for that? Someone comes and goes, "Hey, what orifice you in? Hey, get out!" I mean,
So that
seriously,
literally happened.
Yeah.
that happens.
Yes.
That's not a joke. That
That's-
actually happens.
Remind
Remind me why I don't go there.
Okay. So there's a number of states that have proposed it. One recently passed it. In Virginia, a guy ran for governor on anti-sodomy, meaning
The
that
dumbest thing ever. That's
literally-
the dumbest thing ever.
it literally outlaws blowjobs.
Yep.
Okay, straight.
Blowjob's not
Get-
sodomy.
It is.
It is.
No, it's a mouth
What?
hug.
It is?
That's a. I'm sorry, I got
Did
creepy.
you say mouth love?
No, it's a mouth hug.
Oh,
no,
mouth
it's a blowjob. That's not.
yes.
How is that sodomy? Sodomy
Sodomy
was
is-
always the butt.
No, sodomy is oral and anal. Okay,
I gotta look. I'm sorry, I didn't do my research.
Is that the Gomorrah part?
This is so dumb.
Yes.
Can I say something and then go back to this? As a news organization, you guys do a lot more news than I ever know about, but I don't know enough about the news. I mean, how is this even fucking possible with like ISIS? I mean, we have so much bigger shit happening in the world, and we're worried about this.
Well, that's the incredible thing. These are the same people that draft legislation like this are the same ones that'll fearmonger about ISIS. So they talk about how ISIS is the biggest problem. We need to solve it right away. We need to go after them. And then they're sitting together and conspiring on ways of how they can dictate our personal lives.
ISIS would be so into this act, by the way. Like,
Totally.
ISIS wants to pass. They probably
ISIS
already
is knee
passed
deep in this.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, have you guys created a religion yet? Like a non-religion?
Do you religion. Live your life however you see fit, as long as you're not harming others.
Yes. See, this is
but let's actually make it a religion, right? Yeah. I mean, I know, there's atheism here, and that's fine, I think. But, like, I don't get how this is about religious freedom at all. Like, right. I'm opposed to Crocs and mullets, you know what I'm saying? So let's just start an anti-Crocs and mullets religion. And,
hipsters
but like,
by
I'm not...
Beechwood. Yes, we could get some of those too.
Exactly. So, no, but I wonder, like, there's such a big game talked in this country about freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom. And yet, except when it comes to actually just my personal, very specific, very singular, very conservative interpretation of my religion, that's when I get to dictate what happens with all y'all, and in your life and in your bedroom.
And also, like, I have a big problem with people who make the argument that if, like, let's say someone's a pharmacist, right? They go through all the schooling, they're a pharmacist, but they're a religious pharmacist. I don't care about your religion, you still have to do your job. And as a pharmacist, you have to give people the prescriptions that they've been prescribed. So if someone needs birth control pills, you got to give them birth control pills. Same with Muslims. If you're a Muslim and you believe that pork is bad and you decide to work at a grocery store that requires you to handle pork, tough nuggets, you got to handle the pork. If you don't like
the pork rinds.
Work somewhere else.
I think religion has no place in politics. I don't think
I agree.
I was grown, I was raised a Catholic, and then I saw Spotlight and I cried. But that's all. But I'm not. I'm like pretty much now almost a scientist. Like I really look at it very practically, and there's like, but the religion in politics has nothing to do with our fucking world. Okay, it's based on ethereal things, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's like obviously it's driving horrific things in this world. But this is, I totally agree with what you're saying. Love who you want to love. This is stupid.
But is this legal? Like, with the Supreme Court ruling, can a state legislature pass something like this?
So it'll have to go to the Supreme Court, and it'll depend on who replaces Scalia.
Yeah,
honestly.
Right. Then that's scary.
And so in the case that I was referring to when Jamie asked, what do they do, bust in? Well, that was the Supreme Court decision that outlawed anti-sodomy laws in the first place, right? And so that was in a Texas case where cops literally busted in and caught somebody in mid-act. And they're like,
amazing.
Okay, they're like,
a man and a man.
How they like, that's the sodomy house over there.
And
like,
so
what?
they're like, okay, there it is. We found it. We masturbated to it, and then we arrested you, right?
Wait, let him go a little longer.
Right.
I mean, it's terrible.
And then the court said, no, you can't tell people what to do in their bedrooms. Now the guy who was running for governor of Virginia, wanted to do it anyway, even though the Supreme Court was against it. Now, in terms of this is a very amazing law because it says, as you pointed out earlier, Francesca, it says you can discriminate.
Yep.
Right? So that would be a unique case for the Supreme Court to look at. Is a state allowed to pass a law where you can discriminate? Usually they look at laws where they say you're not allowed to discriminate and see what the parameters of that are. So this would be given the parameters of a pro-discrimination law.
I know, but look at their wording. The way that they're framing it is that this is an anti-discrimination law because they're trying to protect religious people from discrimination. They're trying to protect religious people's from discrimination if they choose to discriminate against others. Like, that's the way it really works.
That's an interesting reverse manipulation.
Exactly.
They kind of have a point, but yes, I totally agree with us, but it's interesting how they could word that.
Yeah, so last thing is
That's
that
scary.
Think about how this is going to operate in real life. Because, okay, so one way is easy. Two guys come in to get a marriage license. They go, no, I'm not going to give it to you. The state gives me the ability to discriminate against you. Because if I didn't, you'd be discriminating against me by getting a marriage license. Okay, bizarre, right?
Right.
But also the state gives you the ability when a man and a woman come in and go, all right, tell me about your sex life. Okay, literally, it gives them. So, did you ever give him a handy? Okay, did you ever give him, as Jamie said, a mouth hug?
Maybe you need to go to the doctor and see if that hymen's intact. And if it is, well, maybe then I'll marry you guys.
So now this comes from the people who say they're for small government.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right. And it drives me crazy. They're not in favor of small government. The only time they're in favor of small government is when it comes to deregulating businesses and corporations that have a vested interest to make as much money as possible without dealing with regulations and things
All
like
other times,
that's it.
Totally in favor of a giant government, whether it's the military or it's cases like this where they want to get into all of our sex lives, right? So if they were really for small government, believe in freedom and get the hell out of our lives.
Don't you think these are the horniest people, though?
Probably.
Totally.
They're the most tweaked out, because they're. I have enough problems in my bedroom with my girlfriend. I don't need the cops getting involved.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might want the cops getting involved.
So I was like, okay, like that's a different portion of the show.
She's bossy.
Okay.
She's bossy, is that what you muttered?
So she
She's
dictates.
bossy.
That could be fun, though. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, a possible debate over whether women should be paid as much as men in soccer. We'll see.